Prince Charles has warned the world is on the brink in an impassioned call to action. Prince Charles urged businesses, world leaders and the older generations to take action to safeguard the globe and the environment before it's too late. In a heartfelt essay he penned, the Prince of Wales recalled John Fitzgerald Kennedy's address in the midst of the Cuban Missile Crisis and said that same message appealing on human ingenuity remains relevant today. He told Newsweek, that inspiring call to action remains prescient today, but in a different context and a different conflict. Our battle against climate change to create a cleaner, safer and healthier planet for future generations. Once again, the world is on the brink, and we need the mobilizing urgency of a war-like footing if we are to win. Prince Charles, who first raised alarm bells over pollution and climate change 5 decades ago, warned inaction now would have a devastating impact and immense economic pressure on future generations. He wrote, "Ultimately, the cost of inaction will far outweigh the cost of action." Already, younger generations have expressed an understandable frustration about the pace of action on this issue. With each missed opportunity, our generation places yet more of the financial burden of these failings on theirs, and on those not yet born. The Prince of Wales said it is time to acknowledge our interconnectedness as a global people, and that none of us is safe until we are all safe. And, he noted, his generation should act as quickly as possible in this direction as it has the eyes of youngsters pointed at. He wrote, "At present, there is none more pressing than putting nature, people and our singular and fragile planet at the heart of how we live, work and do business to create the brightest possible future for humanity. The time is now. The eyes of our children and grandchildren are judging us. Let ours be the generation that can and does. As we enter a new year, there is not a moment to lose." Further stressing how urgent action is needed, Prince Charles said he has already witnessed in his recent trips around the world how the climate crisis is having a negative impact. He wrote, "I have seen at first hand the impact of false dawns. In November, I traveled to Jordan and, standing at the baptism site of Jesus, could see the depleting levels of water in what is already one of the most water-poor countries in the world. In Egypt, who will preside over the next COP meeting, I heard about the devastating impact of climate change on water and agriculture in the Nile Delta, now one of the most vulnerable ecosystems on Earth. Later that month, when I traveled to Barbados, I listened to people's fears about the rising sea levels and the resulting threat posed to their country's very existence. Conceding it will take trillions of dollars to the global private sector to go green, Prince Charles spoke of a military-style campaign to marshal the strength of this area. He then set out a framework he believes could help build a more sustainable future, the same he already detailed during COP26 in Glasgow in November and launched last year under the name of the Terra Carta Roadmap for Nature. This sees global industries coming together to set out the changes needed and strategies to achieve them. Secondly, it mentions private investments supporting the transition from a fossil fuel-based economy to a greener one. And lastly, it calls on governments around the world not to change rules of the game in order to boost investors' and companies' confidence for a long-term change.